Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. So, here recently, Xbox has seemingly been having some problems with games leaking out online just a little bit early. We've seen this trend for the last year or so, and well, it looks like several games, once again, did leak out online as we've gotten just a little bit information as to what is coming from them in the future. So, we're going to talk about that today, and also, Scalping is getting absolutely ridiculous by this point. I mean, this is something that we've really been dealing a lot with this generation, but yeah, it's getting absolutely absurd by this point, so we're going to go over all of that as well, plus, of course, plenty more. Moving on to the first topic of the day, though, we are going to be talking about a game that I feel has been a little overlooked, and that would be for Happy Game. Happy Game is being developed by Amanita Design, which they've made some really good point-and-click adventure games in the past, such as Samaros. They've worked on Machinarium and Botanicula, so they do a really good job when it comes to these point-and-click adventure games. They do such a good job when it comes to the art design in these games. They often have clever puzzles, they have good settings, and I mean, really, Happy Game looks no different, but this one is quite dark. It may say Happy Game, but based off the gameplay, it's actually a little unsettling. But considering the quality of their past games, I think that if you are a fan of point-and-click adventure games, you might want to pay attention to this one. And well, the good news is that you're not going to have to wait too long because they did announce a release date for October 28th. Happy Game will be available on the Nintendo Switch as well as Steam. And if you are looking for a game to play during the spectacular month of October, or you want a good Halloween game, then you might want to consider checking out Happy Game, as it does truly look very unsettling, to say the least. Next up, let's talk about the Xbox Series here for a moment, or actually more specifically with its storage. One big topic this generation has been with those solid-state drives, as really these solid-state drives are such a huge improvement compared to something that we've seen last generation with those old, slow mechanical drives. Where it used to take games minutes to load, now it only takes them mere seconds, so these solid-state drives are such a huge improvement. But with that, expansions have been a little expensive so far. NVMe solid-state drives, they're just not cheap, and we are seeing that this generation, but one thing that Xbox has been doing at the very least is trying to make the installation for these devices as easy as possible. So they are offering these memory card-like devices, which I actually personally really like. However, the problem with this is because this is proprietary, there's just not very many options as of the moment. So far, Seagate is the only one making these, and the only option is that 1 terabyte option sitting at $220. However, today they just revealed 2 more, both again being developed by Seagate, one being a 512 gigabyte option, and then the other a massive 2 terabyte storage expansion. Yeah, it's a pretty big expansion, and with that, a pretty hefty price at $400 total dollars. I mean, you're talking about a storage expansion that is more expensive than the totality of the Xbox Series S. That's pretty insane, but the good news here is that you can instead just opt out and getting that 512 gigabyte option at $140. I think this is going to be really enticing for a lot of fans out there, especially for Xbox Series S owners. The Xbox Series S is a great entry point to jump into next generation games, but the one problem with that console is that it just doesn't have a lot of storage right out of the gate. The Xbox Series S has 512 gigabytes of storage, even less for game applications in specific, so an expansion like this is going to be really enticing, so really glad to see more options like this on the market. Now, for that 512 gigabyte expansion, it will be available mid-November, while the 2 terabyte option will be available this December. Now, speaking of Xbox, we have quite a bit of leaks to go over here thanks to Jez Corden over on the Xbox 2 podcast. They do a great job per usual, and Jez Corden was especially talkative when it comes to upcoming games coming from Xbox Game Studios. Now, he does say that all of this is specifically from Xbox Game Studios and not Bethesda, as he doesn't really know anything about Bethesda. Seems like they are a lot less leaky than Xbox Game Studios themselves, but he seems absolutely stoked for the future of Xbox, as he knows quite a few games that they are working on. Now, with that in mind, you have to remember that this is just a rumor for the time being, but what I will say is that Jez Corden, which works for Windows Central, does a great job at leaking Xbox games. Over the last year, Jez Corden has detailed multiple games that Xbox is working on, including Project Typhoon, which has since been confirmed as Contraband. They've detailed games such as Project Dragon. He's talked about NXI's next game. He's talked about Avowed and so much more. So with all that in mind, let's check out what all he had to say. He did mention a few more project codenames that are in development, such as Project Shaolin. He talked about Project Belfry, as well as some game that is being developed by a popular independent developer. He didn't exactly go into great detail about any of these projects, so we're not going to speculate too much on those, but he did mention some pretty big things here, which we will get into, including what Obsidian Entertainment is working on, which apparently is a lot. He also went into more detail about Project Dragon, which we've heard about earlier this year, and then also Compulsion's next game. Now, first, let's take a look at Project Dragon, which is a game that we heard about earlier this year. This is supposedly some kind of online RPG being developed by IO Interactive. IO Interactive, of course, is a highly talented studio, as they debatably have made the best stealth-based game in recent years, being Hitman 3. Really, Hitman has just been a great overall franchise under IO Interactive, so yes, this is a big get for Xbox if they are indeed working with IO Interactive. Though Project Dragon does sound quite a bit different than some of their other games. Again, this is some kind of online RPG, but the last time we heard about this, it kind of seemed up in the air. I mean, this is apparently some game that's really early in development, so what exactly is happening with this game? Well, Jez Corden does say here that it is definitely happening. They have went forth with this project and it will be in development. So there you have it. IO Interactive and Xbox is now officially working together, or at least according to Jez Corden. Another game that he does mention here, though, would be Compulsion Games, and this actually isn't just coming from a leak from Jez Corden, by the way, but this is also backed up by Clobriel and actually by Compulsion Games themselves. Now, in the podcast, he does mention that they are working on some kind of third-person dark fantasy game, as Clobriel also states. But interestingly enough, Compulsion Games, in an interview just this week, did say that they are working on a narrative-driven, single-player, third-person action-adventure game. So this does kind of add up to what both Jez Corden and Clobriel is saying, and I think this is a perfect fit for them. Compulsion Studios is one of Xbox's lesser-known studios, but I think out of all the studios that they've acquired in recent years, Compulsion Games is a studio that might have some of the most potential out of any of the studios that they've picked up, especially if you're talking about story-driven content. We Happy Few released a few years back, and this game was criticized for certain aspects of the game, specifically when it comes to bugs and glitches there at the launch. But what Compulsion Games does really well is that they make these really interesting worlds, and with We Happy Few, it had a really good story. So I think with Xbox and just having that extra budget and more time, they could really unlock their potential, as we've already seen with Double Fine and Psychonauts 2 and then NXI'll and Wasteland 3. Xbox specifically helped make these into better games, and I think with that extra budget, maybe Compulsion Games can do the same thing. In fact, during that interview, they did say that they've doubled their workforce since being acquired by Microsoft. So you're already seeing the Xbox acquisition pay off here for them, as they have been able to increase their workforce. But yeah, for Xbox fans out there that's been wanting more of these third-person action-adventure narrative style games, well, it looks like you're going to get that with Compulsion Games, and now it's just a matter if they can execute or not. The studio that I think a lot of you are going to be interested in, though, would be Obsidian Entertainment. Jez Corden does talk about what they're working on, and it actually sounds like they have a lot going on over there, and probably more than what fans might be expecting. Of course, we know about Avowed, The Outer Worlds 2, as well as Grounded, but it sounds like they have even more in development beyond just that. Something that Jez Corden does say is that apparently they want to release one new game at least every single year for the next 7 years. That is quite ambitious, and I mean, we'll kind of see how that turns out, but he does actually very specifically mention Josh Sawyer's next game. Josh Sawyer, of course, has worked on some popular RPGs in the past, such as Icewind Dale, Fallout New Vegas, Pillars of Eternity, and even The Outer Worlds. So his name's going to draw in some attention, and, well, it does sound like his next game might be a little smaller in scope. Jez Corden does describe this game being kind of similar to something like Grounded in terms of size, and apparently it's going to be pretty artistic-led. But yeah, it does sound like Obsidian Entertainment is going to have a good mix of these big RPGs such as Avowed and The Outer Worlds 2, alongside some of these smaller games such as Grounded, and then whatever Josh Sawyer is working on next. And beyond that, if it does turn out to be true that they have a new game that pretty much releases every year over the next 7 years, yeah, Microsoft might have struck gold by acquiring Obsidian Entertainment, which, I mean, we know is a good RPG studio already, but it looks like they're going to have quantity there as well. Nonetheless, I mean, the one thing that I think that you can take away from this leak here is that Microsoft, specifically with Xbox Game Studios, has a lot in development, and again, this doesn't even include Bethesda games. Next up, we need to talk about scalpers here for a moment, as this has just become so problematic over the last year. Scalpers have hit these next-generation consoles majorly. The Xbox Series X, the PlayStation 5, or even the Nintendo Switch OLED has all been impacted by scalping. Of course, if you've been looking to get one of these consoles, it's not always easy, as these scalpers, they try to buy up as much stock as they can and then try to mark up the price as much as they possibly can over on places like eBay. This has become very problematic by this point, and it's gotten to the point that scalpers are now trying to take advantage of every single product that they possibly can, especially when it comes to these collector's items. We've actually seen this happen twice in the last week or so with the Nintendo 64, Nintendo Switch Online controller, and then also the Xbox refrigerator. And okay, this is bound to happen. I kind of figured it would happen with both of these devices, but the reason we're actually going to be talking about this today is that I feel like informing everybody is the best solution to not let these scalpers take advantage of you. The reason scalpers do this is because they can simply get away with it. They can get these devices, they can massively overprice them, and then fans will buy them because they don't think that they can get them any other way. Maybe they think that devices like this are limited, but that's actually not the case with either the Nintendo 64 controller or the Xbox Series X refrigerator. In the past, Nintendo has been known to regularly restock their Nintendo Switch Online controller, so you don't have to worry about not getting that Nintendo 64 controller. It might take some patience, but you will eventually get it. Now, as for the Xbox refrigerator, this device has also been confirmed as not a limited item. Aaron Greenberg did confirm this over on Twitter that they will continue to restock this item throughout 2022, and actually this holiday, most stock will be in stores. So don't necessarily worry about pre-ordering this device online. If you want the Xbox fridge, just head over to Target whenever it releases this December and see if you can pick it up there. Again, don't pay scalpers $300 for an item that only costs $100 and that you more than likely will be able to pick it up at some point, whether it be this holiday or a little bit after. This is not a limited item confirmed by Xbox themselves. And that is the alarming part and why we're talking about this today. If you head over to Twitter, you can actually see that a lot of people have bought these scalped items at like triple the price over on eBay. So that's why I'm just kind of letting you all know these are not limited items. I mean, if you still want to buy these from scalpers at like triple the price, it's your money. You can do whatever you want, but I'm just kind of letting you all know these are not limited. On to our final topic of the day, though. We're going to be talking about that Uncharted movie. A new trailer did go out online today, and I'm not going to have footage on my channel just for copyrighted reasons, but yes, that Uncharted trailer finally made its debut after hearing about this for like 10 years. And it seems like the community has been a little mixed on this, and I'm very mixed on it myself personally. I am a big Uncharted fan. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time. I've said this quite a few times on the channel. My 3 favorite gaming franchises is Pokemon, Uncharted, and Gears of War. So knowing that an Uncharted movie after all of these years being compared to movies, really, it is exciting, but ever since they announced that Tom Holland was going to play Nathan Drake, I was a little skeptical on that. He just doesn't seem to be a great fit, or at least in my opinion. I think he's a great actor, but he doesn't necessarily seem like a good fit per se. And well, based off of the trailer that we saw today, yeah, I'm not necessarily too confident in this movie. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe Tom Holland just knocks it out of the park with Nathan Drake, but this trailer did not necessarily inspire a lot of confidence, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. Let me know what you thought of the trailer that they showed today. Maybe you feel like this just looks absolutely amazing, and I would love to hear your thoughts below on that. But we did get that official release day, so we're not going to have to wait too long to watch this movie for ourselves. It will be out on February 18th of 2022, exclusively in theaters. Let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, though, and with a lot of these collectibles kind of selling out here recently, I wanted to ask you all, outside of just games, do you collect game-related items such as figurines, controllers, collectible, etc.? And well, it does seem like quite a few of you do this, with 31% of you saying yes, while 64% of you said no. So the majority of you don't necessarily collect them, but that's still a good percentage of you that does do that. And this is something that I have noticed here in recent years. It seems like there's really a rise in collectors. I personally collect a lot of items myself. My room is filled with like statues and figurines and all sorts of different things like that, and I've been trying to find new ways to display my games and kind of showing the box art rather than just the spine. But yeah, I love collecting game-related stuff. This is something that I'm very passionate about, not just playing games, but also collecting the things I love. I enjoy finding new ways to display my items, and every time I look at them, it's just such a great nostalgia boost. So it is nice to hear that a lot of you all do something similar, and you know, one day I'd love to see some of your all's collections out there. Again, this is something I'm very passionate about, but you know, looking through the comments, it seems like you all collect a wide array of things. Some of you all mentioned collecting things like figurines of specific franchise or different plushies or even art books, which is really interesting right there. I know there's a lot of different art books sold out there for video games, and yeah, it's pretty cool to see some of you all collect things like that. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.